Asalamu'alaikum all, welcome back to my channel. I pray that you are all in the best of health and iman. If you are new, welcome. My name is Nafisa. I am a Muslimah life coach and I support Muslim women with relationship and mental health issues. So if you're interested in being coached in those areas, you can find me over on my website, which I will leave linked in the description box down below. But over here on YouTube, I make Islamic lifestyle as well as dawah content. So if you're interested in that, then definitely make sure you hit that subscribe button down below. I also want to say thank you so much for all of your well wishes and congratulations on me releasing the video about me having had a baby this year. Thank you so much for all your prayers. Ameen. May Allah accept your du'as for me and may He also do the same for you as well. Ameen. Okay, so in today's video, we are talking about transitioning into married life. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into my tips for successfully transitioning into married life, insha'Allah. My first tip on entering into marriage life is that when entering into marriage life, adopt the mindset that marriage is an ibadah. Why? Because there will be so many challenges along your life. Insha'Allah, I'm praying that everyone that gets married has a successful marriage and that it lasts a lifetime. And so within that lifetime is virtually impossible to expect that you will not have challenges with the person that you've chosen to partner up with in life, your spouse. Bearing that in mind, if you don't go into marriage understanding that it's an act of worship, you are likely to really oppress your spouse. But if you adopt the mindset that marriage is an act of ibadah, it helps you to do or fulfill the rights of your spouse, even at times when you don't feel like it. And to be honest, a lot of the times that will help to overcome the challenging times and to eventually go back into good times again. So guys, understand that the duties and acts that you do within marriage is an act of ibadah. Is you fulfilling the rights of the other person, is you avoiding harming the other person. It's so weird because we try our best not to hurt people outside of our family union. And then we forget that the people within our immediate family are the ones that we should be more careful with in terms of the way we treat them. Sometimes, wives take it for granted that their husbands will forgive them, and sometimes husbands take it for granted that wives will forgive them. So we offend one another and we don't ask for forgiveness because we just assume this person loves me, they're going to get over it and they're going to forgive me, because we assume ultimately that our spouses don't want us to go to hell. Or that they don't want us to be held accountable. But there's only so much that a person can take, and continuous offending of one another within the marriage circle can eventually lead to that person hoping that a day will come when Allah will hold you accountable for the oppression that you have caused upon them. So it is very, very important to understand that, sometimes I might look like a fool because I am giving you your rights, but I'm not a fool. I know what I'm doing. It's because of the fear of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. It's because in front of Allah I want it to be known that I did my part in this marriage to make things work. I did my part to treat you well, and so even if you don't appreciate it, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will bear me witness. And even if you don't appreciate it, because sometimes being a wife can be a thankless job, kind of like being a mother, but at the end of the day, if you understand and you take every act that you do as something or of a way of worshipping Allah, of a way of pleasing Allah, and you're able to be patient through the difficult times to please Allah, then you know that you have your reward with Allah. And when times are really hard, that is really what gets you through. So I really want to make that a prominent point in terms of transitioning into married life from being single. My second tip to successfully transition into married life is one that a lot of women are... Some women might come for me in the comment section, but I say it often and I'll keep saying it again. Expect to do some sort of, domesticated work. It doesn't mean that you are a slave, but let's be honest here. The gender roles and the expectations of the different genders still exist. For the most part, we still expect the men to go out, earn the money and take care of us as the women and take care of our children and maintain the household. And it's also still an expectation for the woman to be responsible for keeping her house or making her house a home. Homemaking is still something that is very important. For the younger generations who think, I'm going to get married, but the man can cook his own food. I don't care about what he eats. I don't care about cleaning the house. I'm not the only person that lives here. Yes, you're not the only person that lives in a home. And yes, the men should be helping, as the Prophet ﷺ helped around with chores, and he helped his wives and he eased for them their burdens. And I highly recommend that the brothers also help their wives in easing her burden in maintaining the home, because it's not a one-person job. However, you as the woman, I'm speaking to my fellow sisters here, you as the woman, you are responsible for the maintenance of your home, right? And so that also oftentimes includes you cooking and making sure your family are eating healthily and making sure your house is hygienic. It won't always be tidy, especially if you have children, but for the most part, it's for you to make sure that that part of the home is taken care of, and that you are paying attention to that. Oftentimes that responsibility also lay more so with us women, because we're the ones that notice these things. The men, they can come in and out. The only time they notice that laundry hasn't been done is when they're missing a pair of boxers that they wore last week. They want to wear again and they can't find it, right? So a lot of the time they don't pay attention to these, minor things. But us women, it's part of our nature to pay attention to detail. And so taking care of our home, making sure our home is comfortable and a nice place, in a nice environment to be in. It doesn't have to be expensive, go splurging money, and no, just making sure your house is clean, is generally as tidy as it can be. Your children are fed and they're well fed, and you're maintaining the upkeep of the home. It's something that I want women to expect that they will have to be responsible for. So that is my second point. Come in, learning how to cook a few dishes that you can maintain cooking for the first couple of months of marriage, so that you and your family can enjoy some, home cooked meals. That will go a long way, okay? Because things are expensive these days. You can't expect to always be ordering food to eat. So if you don't know how to cook, this is the time to learn. If you don't know how to clean, this is the time to learn. The same advice for the men too. If you are a man and your mom's been doing it all for you, and you expect your wife to do absolutely everything, shame on you. Yes, I said it. Shame on you, because you know what? You need to learn how to cook as well. You need to learn how to operate the washing machine. Yes, how to wash your own clothes and things like that, so you can help your wife out every now and again. I'm not saying this is something only women should learn, but like I said before, I think it's still an expectation that for the most part, the woman will be in charge of these things in her home. And I think women should prepare themselves. And if you're a mother, you have a daughter that is of marriageable age, please make sure you're starting to teach her these things in terms of taking care of a home and taking care of the family, because at the end of the day, that responsibility will fall more on her if her husband is out earning the money and working. So that is my second point. I'm sorry if you don't like it, but it is what it is. My next tip in terms of successfully transitioning into married life is to prepare yourself to change a little bit. To think that you will stay or remain the same person when you are married as you were when you were single is a little bit naive. Now, I'm not saying you're going to change completely, but I'm saying expect to grow. It's probably a better way to put it. Expect to have to adopt some new habits in terms of how you present yourself. Why? Because now that you are a married woman, you are no longer just representing yourself and your family, but also your in-laws. And the in-laws want to be represented well. These days, a lot of people are on social media, whether they have private accounts or whether they have public accounts, or whether they just have a WhatsApp account, whatever it is, right? And we post different things online that other people can see. Back in the days, it used to be that people had to visit one another and physically see one another to actually get a gist for what that person is about. But nowadays, social media has made it easy for us to be exposed to others outside. And when you are exposing yourself, when you carry yourself in a kind of way that may disgrace your in-laws, that is something that you have to think twice about. So even if you were never a hijabi, but you're used to wearing your tight jeans and all of that, and you think, why should I change that now that I am married? My husband saw that in me and he was attracted to that. You want to maintain that. Well, if you come from a culture where married women, usually dress more conservatively, then you're going to have to try in some ways to adopt that as well. Why? Because it's not only just a representation of you anymore, it is now a representation of your husband and who he is. So people will look at you as the wife, and they will there will be a judgment about who your husband is based on the way you behave and based on the way you present. The same thing with the in-laws as well. If your in-laws have your number and they are following you on WhatsApp and they watch your WhatsApp status and you're posting certain things that's inappropriate, you might even forget that your in-laws are behind watching all these things, and yet they see all these things and they may not be happy in terms of the way you are representing their family, because as a woman, you go into a new family as well, so you are also an extension of their families. And it's easy to say, well, that really shouldn't matter, we shouldn't care what the in-laws think, but at the end of the day, you are now part of a new family. You're going to have to care what they think to some extent, and to some extent what they think does matter. So be prepared to make a couple of changes that will help you present as a woman of integrity and a woman of honor. I apologize for the changes in lights. It is now time for my group here, so I had to stop recording and come back. But my next point is that you must be ready to actively listen to your spouse. And marriage in general, for the rest of your life, will test your ability to do this. And what I mean by actively listening is actually taking on board whatever input your spouse is giving you. So if your spouse keeps repeating the same thing in terms of what they would like for you to do, changes that they would love to see in you, or you're saying the same thing to your spouse, but neither of you are making any changes, then that will eventually cause a lot of conflict. Unfortunately, sometimes the things that eventually break a marriage is not the major things, but rather it's the small things that have been building up for years and decades on end, and then you find that one thing will happen, and before you know it, the other person is like, no, I've had enough, I am done, no more. And someone from the outside will hear this and be like, what, just based on this little thing? No, there's got to be more to this. Well, yes, that little thing built up throughout the years to the point where that person can no longer take it. So actively listening to your spouse is very, very, very important, guys. If they are saying that something is causing them distress, there's a problem within the marriage and we need to change it, then the both of you have to actively listen to one another and take actions to actually change the things that's causing a problem within the marriage. It is better to do that rather than to dismiss the feelings of one another and act like they don't matter. Because the more you dismiss the feelings of one another, when you're trying to get to know one another, what will end up happening is resentment will begin to build up. You will get angry with each other quite frequently. Consistent arguments will happen, and you will find that you are enjoying your marriage less than arguing and fighting more. Why? Because one person or both partners are feeling like they're not being listened to, or that they are not being heard or not being understood. So communication, they say, is one of the biggest advice you have when you're getting married. So many people will say communicate. But communication in and of itself is an entire, I can make a whole series based on effective communication between men and women, but it takes a lot of understandings of the differences between men and women in order for communication to become successful. But it's definitely something to pay attention to, and at the bare minimum, actively listening to one another is something that you should try your best to do, and not to make assumptions based upon other experiences that you've had, but let the person speak, hear them for what they're saying, and if you've misheard them, ask them if that is what they mean. Once you've interpreted what they've said to you, ask them, is that what you mean? So that person can then say, yes, that was what I meant, or no, this is what I meant instead. Because sometimes we're not all very effective communicators. Some people are better at expressing themselves and communicating than others, and of course with us women, sometimes we give subliminal messages rather than being direct, and so it can be difficult to understand what it is exactly that we want. So please actively listen to one another, take the issues that come up seriously, and do something about it to try to make the marriage better. Good marriages don't just happen on their own because the two individuals happen to be good. Good marriages happen because both partners within the marriage want the marriage to work and they are making their effort, they fight their own nafs and try their best to make the marriage work. That's where you have good marriages work, because you can have two good people who get married, but yet the marriage still doesn't work because of various reasons. So understand that in order for a marriage to be successful, both of you have to work at it. Okay, if one person is doing all the work, it's not going to be enough to carry that marriage through, because they will get to a point where they feel fed up and they feel like they've had enough. So please, the both of you have to put in the work and actively listen to one another, and both actively equally put in the effort to solve the issues that are coming up, and so that you can live a much more happier and fruitful or have a happier and fruitful marriage, insha'Allah. And on that note, my next point is get ready to call out to respectfully call out negative behavior. You see, in the first few months of marriage, you're going to discover things about your spouse you didn't know before, because in the talking stages, you both put across your best representative, right? So you were extra nice to one another. You had all these ideas in your head about what married life is going to be like. You were excited about it. You were all going through what's kind of called like the honeymoon phase. I actually think like the talking phase can also become part of the honeymoon phase, when you're not quite sure of the realities of being married and actually living with somebody, right? So you're both in different places and you see one another in this blissful way. Now, when you begin to share a space with somebody and you live with them 24/7, certain habits will come across. And when I say get ready to call out bad habits, I mean get ready to be able to respectfully say to your spouse, this doesn't work for me, this doesn't work for us, it's not helpful for our marriage, this is what we need to do to successfully transition. Life may have been like this before, but if we try it this way now, it may be better for us. So you need to be able to speak out, and being able to confidently speak out, being able to tell your spouse what it is about their behaviors, certain behaviors you don't like, is going to be important. Because if you don't do that, again, you will continue to keep quiet until it eats you up so much that the tiniest thing can be enough to then cause a big issue within your marriage. Okay, so please take it into consideration. And when I say this, I mean it from the smallest of bad habits to maybe the major things, right? So if your husband is used to always going out all of the time and spending all of his extra time with his friends, and he somehow still thinks that when he gets married, he can still do the same thing and come home at 1 a.m. in the morning, that is going to cause an argument, and you need to be able to confidently have a conversation with him and let him know that that's not okay, and he needs to be able to understand why that is no longer acceptable. My next tip on successfully transitioning into marriage is that you should be yourself, but at the same time avoid building enemies too soon. What I mean by this is in relation to in-laws and other members of your new family that you may come across when you go into marriage and you enter into a new family. Now, what I mean by not building enemies too quickly is that, sometimes you just need to tone things down and read people first before you begin to react to certain things, right? Because when you go into this new family that you've married into, you don't know how certain people are. Take your time. If I can give you one tip, I would just say speak less and observe more. When you are a new wife, just speak less and observe more. Be yourself. I'm not saying become this timid person. No, be yourself, but hold certain things back. Be quiet. Do a lot of observation. When you're in environments where your in-laws are, your mother-in-law, father-in-law, brothers and sisters-in-law, the extra cousins and blah, 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 be friendly, be nice. All of that, yes, do all of that. Engage in conversation with them. Start off conversation with them. Don't always expect them to start up a conversation with you. However, avoid talking too much and showing too much of who you are until you've observed who they are. Why? Because They are judging you so much as a new wife, you have no idea. So the less you say, the less you give them something to judge about. Now, I know that's not going to last, and I'm not saying do that forever, but I'm saying until you begin to figure who people are in that family and how they behave, then you can know how to best relate to them. My final tip for this video, and there are so many more things that I can say on this, but if you want more of like a advice or counseling on a personal basis, then you contact me via my website or book a session with me, and we can talk about your specific issues. But the final tip for this video would be that you should be open to counseling if the needs arise. Okay, don't be one of those people. And when I say counseling, I don't mean that it always has to be by a professional, although you may choose to. And one of the benefits with getting professional counseling is that a professional counselor isn't going to go around telling people your personal issues, and they are not related to you either, so they can see it from an outside perspective, and they can let you know if there's ways that you're going wrong, and also let your spouse know if there's ways that they are going wrong too. But back to my point, be open to counseling. And sometimes you can get counseling from an elderly person who has had a good marriage for the most part. No one has a perfect marriage, but maybe an elderly person whom you admire, who seems to have had a good marriage for the most of their lives, that can advise you correctly or that can give you good input. Sometimes we don't want to share anything about our marriages whatsoever, but at times that can also limit us in terms of the lessons that we can learn. Some things we can learn in easier ways instead of having to go through a very painful experience to learn the same lesson. It's kind of the same as you watching this video right now. Maybe you take some of these advice on board. It would make life easier for you. It would be easier for you to take advice right now and avoid certain painful experiences, rather than you actually having to go through the painful experience in order to learn the lesson. Right? So be open to counseling if the needs arise. So those are just a few ways to successfully adjust into married life. Again, like I said, there are so many more things we can talk about when it comes to this topic. It is quite a huge topic, but those are just some of the things that I think everyone can kind of take something away from. And just have patience, as they say, guys. Have patience, because marriage can be very testing. But at the same time, it can also be very good. But it can't be good on its own without the both of you putting in the work. Okay, both of you putting in the work. I don't just say the sisters have to put in the work, and I don't just say the brothers have to put in the work. Both people have to put in the work, and if they do, for the most part, you end up with a successful marriage by the qadr and will and blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So if that's what you want for yourself, continue to make dua for it. And speaking of dua, ask Allah to make it easy for you. Nothing can become easy except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wills that it becomes easy. So you tie your camel and then you put your trust in Allah. So do your part and make a dua that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala makes it easy for the both of you to adjust to a life together. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will help you through your efforts and make things easy for the both of you. So may Allah bless every single one of you. May Allah bless your marriages. If you're looking to go into marriage, may Allah open the doors for you. Grant you spouses who will be the coolness of your eyes. Grant you spouses that will be good for you and good to you, and also be a blessing to the ummah at large. Ameen. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have, please make sure you give this video a thumbs up. Share it with any brother or sister that is newly married or newlywed and is transitioning into married life or is about to get married. Insha'Allah ta'ala, they gain some benefit from this video. Alright guys, I will see you all in my next video. Check out another video of mine if you have time, and I will see you in the next one. Assalamualaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.